And as part of that interview, we agreed not to reveal the son's name or where he now lives. He's trying to put the pain of the past behind him, and that was a key motivation in him wanting to tell his story. Now, of course, there are other families too who've endured 20 years of tears, hurt and confusion. For the victims' loved ones left behind, there are still many unanswered questions. Here's Tiffany Warne.
There's no doubt the victims' families remain in disbelief that such gruesome crimes could happen in suburban Adelaide streets like these. And while 2 decades have passed, for the relatives left behind, the grieving is far from over.
She knew too much.
For the families of the people who were killed, that date is etched in their mind. It's a date that they're never going to forget.
20 years later, and still mourning. They are victims of crime, the family members whose loved ones were brutally taken.
One held him down, right, and one did the other dirty work to him.
We couldn't believe that because, she was in 11 bags.
For Suzanne Allen's sisters, they live each day without closure.
The jury told Justice Martin that despite long debate, it couldn't reach a verdict on the death of Suzanne Allen. Her body was one of 2 found buried in the backyard of a Salisbury North house just days after the discovery of the infamous barrels in the Snowtown Bank.
I'd like to face him face to face and ask him whether he murdered her or not.
John Bunting and Robert Wagner were charged with Miss Allen's murder, but never convicted.
We were just devastated because we knew that something serious was wrong, but we couldn't seem to get any answers. And we still haven't got any answers.
From what they'd heard, Bunting had their sister under his spell.
Apparently he was a happy-go-lucky sort of a fellow too, but she just told us that she was going to get married to him and all the rest of it. And she was madly in love with him.
But a week before she disappeared, like many of the other victims, Suzanne left a chilling message for Joan.
She was crying and she said, "I'm shifting and you won't know where I am until I get settled, I'll let you know." And she was crying her eyes out then.
While the men claim she died of natural causes.
Well, why would they chop her up?
And they still can't accept that Suzanne will never come home.
Always looking out for her and see if she's going to come around the corner one day. But, no.
Personally, I reckon he should rot and die in there.
Another victim, Barry Lane, was Robert Wagner's former partner.
Rob obviously was his shadow all the time.
He'd done the murders of my brother.
Barry's nephew remembers spending time with the couple when he was just a child.
They were like 2 peas in a pot.
His present is haunted by his past, knowing he grew up around one of Australia's worst serial killers.
It makes me really feel sick in the stomach, not knowing that someone wasn't a serial killer, but now is, would turn into such pretty much an animal.
But it was Wagner's recent plea to be considered for parole that's disturbed the family.
You do the crime, you do the time, and for him to say he wants to come out to spend time with his son, well, he should have thought about that before he started hurting people.
With fears they will become the next victims.
If they release him at all, he'll be after me, and I don't want that.
Each time there is an anniversary or an important event in the life of their loved one, they have to relive the fact that there is an empty chair at their table.
Some of the families want the public to stop making crude assumptions about their relatives.
The people who were killed were loved. They were sentenced to death, and the families now live with a life sentence.
A widow's warning after her husband's tragic and unexpected death. Tim Stone was a fit, healthy man and, like most of us, didn't bat an eyelid when he got the odd mouth ulcer, and nor did his doctors. But as Tiffany Warne reports, the seemingly common condition was a symptom of a sinister disease that claimed the young father's life earlier this year.
It just all started as tongue ulcer. It was a really traumatic 9 months for Tim.
Lauren Stone is a loving mother, a caring daughter, and now a heartbroken widow.
To be told that, you know, he should be fine, everything was fine. And yeah, now he's not here anymore.
Just 7 weeks ago, cancer took her husband Tim's life. He was only 33 years old. But the family had no idea their nightmare would start from a seemingly common complaint.
Tim got a mouth ulcer late December, early January, just a tongue ulcer.
Tim had always been fit and healthy, so the couple didn't think much of it. But after a few weeks, the ulcer was still there.
He went to the doctors, just the local GP, to get it checked out. They felt it and looked at it and said it just looks like a normal tongue ulcer.
But despite the doctor's judgment, the problem persisted for months.
And then one night he was up all night with a lot of pain, so I took him down to emergency.
The family was sent home once again with painkillers and reassurance it was normal. But just 2 days after their trip to the emergency room,
he was outside and yeah, he felt 2 bumps in his neck and he came straight in and he said, "I know I've got cancer."
After a trip to a specialist, their fears were soon confirmed. Tim was diagnosed with a form of head and neck cancer.
And they had to remove about 40% of his tongue.
But while this journey would be excruciating for any family, it all happened while they were expecting their second child. The day baby Annabelle was born, Tim was undergoing yet another round of treatment.
With any birth, it's normally very exciting, and he was excited but couldn't enjoy it like any normal family would be able to enjoy it.
And despite all the radiotherapy and chemo, the cancer had soon spread to his lung and his rib.
We were told that it couldn't be cured anymore, but they'd be able to manage it for quite some time.
But Lauren's hopes of one last family holiday were dashed. With Tim's condition worsening by the week, the cancer reached his hip, his spine and his brain. And on the 12th of January, Lauren and her daughters had their last moments with their beloved husband and father.
At that stage he couldn't open his eyes anymore to see the girls. And then he passed away.
Now she's channeling her grief to warn others, especially young families.
I'm trying to explain it to a 3.5-year-old, you know, that it's not coming home, it's just not fair. So we just want people to be aware.
Although Tim didn't win his battle, I'm really proud of Lauren.
Tracy Nichols is the head and neck cancer coordinator at Flinders Medical Centre and got to know the Stone family very well.
Tim's cancer was really aggressive.
She says the spots these cancers can appear aren't always visible.
They occur in the mouth, the tongue, the throat, the voice box, back of the nose and in our salivary glands.
And people need to be wary of any unexplained changes in their body, regardless of how healthy or young they are.
Changes in your voice, the way that you can chew or swallow your food, opening of your mouth, soreness, unexplained weight loss, or any sort of ulcers which could be red or white raised areas.
So if an issue is lingering, don't stop searching for answers.
If you listen to your own body and your own body is telling you that something's wrong, then you need to make sure that you get the correct specialist attention.
Sadly for Lauren, this isn't the first time cancer has torn her family apart. Just 9 years earlier, Tim's brother was also diagnosed. While it was a different type of cancer, he survived his ordeal. But Lauren won't stop her crusade to remind others to look after themselves.
It's happened to this family twice now. Totally different things, but it does happen. That's why we want you to pick up that phone if something's not right and make that appointment.
First tonight, the Northern Suburbs pensioner who outsmarted scammers. After falling victim to fraudsters, Teresa Hauser learned her lesson, and when they came calling again, well, she got them back. But as Tiffany Warne reports, experts are warning this isn't something you should try at home.
Yes, I scammed them. I scammed a scammer.
She was pretty brave to do what she did.
She's the South Aussie senior giving scammers a taste of their own medicine.
So they lost $990, which I gained, which came in handy at the time.
While she says she's not tech savvy, Teresa Hauser managed to turn the tables on the tricksters, taking their money instead of losing hers.
In the end, I outsmarted them. Oh, that sounds all right.
Last year, Teresa got a call out of the blue from someone claiming they worked for a company going out of business and she was owed money.
Could use a bit of extra money. They made me turn on my computer and then they did all the rest after that. It's like that, as if they had control of the mouse, and because you could see the arrow moving and that.
Once they had access to her computer and bank accounts, the scammers gained Teresa's trust by dropping a few $100s into her account. But the next day...
They rang me. They said they accidentally put too much in. So I had to did the same thing again. And this time they took their money back plus about $200 and something out of my account. That's what I realised. And so then I rang the bank. I said, I have a feeling I've been scammed.
This year, a similar call came again, but she wasn't going to be fooled twice.
Because they got away with it last year, maybe with me, so they might have thought, oh yeah, we'll just, try her again, see how we go. So they didn't get anything out of me this time. Oh, yeah.
You got it out of them?
Yeah.
Knowing what they would do and without much to lose, Teresa let the fraudster go through step one of the scam.
I wasn't worried about it because I only had $90 in the bank, so I wasn't too worried about them going into it this time.
And this time, they dropped a much bigger sum than she was expecting.
I got a shock when I checked the bank and it was $990.
Once the money had cleared...
They tried to ring me to get it back, but I just kept ignoring them. So I ended up scamming them. Serves them right, I reckon.
And after checking with her bank to see what she should do next...
They had no idea where it came from. So she just said, happy spending. So I did.
Teresa also took note of the phone numbers the scammers were using.
I rang IINet to see if who these numbers were, where they're coming from. And the girl on the phone just told me they were all scams and haven't had any problems since.
Oh, it's a very dangerous thing to do. It's not something that, as I say, it's not something that I would certainly do. And I wouldn't recommend it.
It's not uncommon for fraudsters to gain your trust and access to accounts this way.
What they're doing is they're actually using a remote access tool that a lot of help desks use to be able to assist.
While Teresa was very lucky she didn't lose out, experts say you shouldn't try it yourself.
If you've given them access to your online banking, they can see all the accounts. You definitely don't want to play that game with your own money in that kind of situation because you are likely to lose out.
So if you get a call that seems too good to be true, it's safest to hang up straight away.
Look up what their phone number actually is and ring them. And once you've rung them, you have that discussion. And I can almost guarantee that it's going to be a case of, no, that would not be us. Because there are lots of these kind of scams around at the moment.
Even though it did pay off, Teresa admits she's learned her lesson.
I wouldn't let them in again, I don't know now.
You've had your fun?
Yeah, I had my fun. So I'll leave it at that.
She's now the recipient of some extra cash. Good on her, but don't try this at home.